Hi, welcome back. In the last video, we have discussed about why software engineering, what do you understand by software engineering? Also, we have seen the definition, IEEE definition of software engineering. So, software engineering, as discussed in the last session, it is nothing but disciplined, systematic, quantitative way through which you develop, operate, and maintain a particular software itself, right? So software engineering also has been said as a layered, technology also. So in this particular session, we'll be discussing about why software engineering also called as a layered technology. So if you see this diagram uh, properly, then you will see that at a base we have a quality focus. Okay, then at the top of quality focus we have the another layer which is called as a process model. Then on the top of the process model, we have the methods, and at the top we have the tools. And you can see the entire, layered technology structure looks like a, like a pyramid itself, with with the base we are talking about, quality, and at the tip we are talking about, the tools itself. So let us understand each of this particular layer one by one. Okay, so quality, right? So why quality has been the base? So in the last particular, sessions, starting from the software to software engineering, we have been talking more on the quality. Okay, right? So whenever you talk about quality, it is something which you are developing for some kind of client. You are developing some user will be using. So it has to I has to cater the needs of the particular client. Okay, we have to understand that whatever the requirement it is has been developed, is been delivered by the software itself, and it does the particular software is easy to use and all. So here if the characteristic, if you talk, is a correctness, right? So what are functions that is required to be performed by the with the software is actually giving you uh, the correct result itself, right? Let us understand one of the example, like software called as Tally, which is really is something used for the accountancy. So that particular software, whatever accountancy we are doing, has to provide you the correct result itself. Next is the maintainability. I was talking about in the last session also. One of the most important aspect is maintaining that particular software, because in that particular maintenance phase there has to be some kind of enhancements. Okay, as I was telling, the business requirement keep on changing today. The market is very very volatile. A lot of sudden changes comes into picture, right? So we need to keep on changing, keep on updating that particular software itself. So maintaining maintainability is one of the very key aspects, quality aspect that we needs to look into it. Next comes the integrity. Yes, okay, we talked about the integrity today. We are looking into the Amazon, shopping cart. We may go to Mantra, right? We can do online transaction and all these things, but there you will see a lot of mails coming into you say don't provide your your OTP and other things, because we are concentrating about the security, right? So you when you are using your online banking transaction, you have a user ID, you have a password. Okay, so you are the one who was authorized to use this particular another and some unauthorized person cannot come and use it. So the integrity of the particular software has to is one of the very key aspect, right? Then come the usability, right? Is usability is how exactly talk about how you're using the particular software, right? So whenever you are actually developing a software itself, right, usability is one of the most important key factor. You will understand one of the aspect called as user interface design. Okay, right, which comes under usability engineering also, right? And user interface means the user is true which interacting with the software, right? And that's very important. It has to be user friendly, it has to be aesthetic, and you understand that particular what you say, user has to really interact with that particular software itself. So a lot of efforts has to be done in order to put the utility of the user. Okay, so let us summarize that character is good. We are talking about correctness, we are talking about maintainability, we are talking about integrity, and we are talking about usability itself. So next thing that we need to is a process, right? So it is the foundation layer that is been shaped, because it whenever you're talking about, this is the out, talk about the quality means that you are talking about ultimate goal that you are talking about. Now, in order to achieve that ultimate goal, what as the steps, or the steps that you need to follow, that is something which is a process, and it is something which is very key to keep all these particular levels, right? From talking about quality to talking about the methods, talking about the tools. Actually, process keeps all these things, right? It actually, the process defines a particular framework, and in this particular framework we will talk about all the activities and the tasks which are required in order to build up this particular software, right? Yes. And how these particular activities, how these particular actions, how these tasks, what are the key milestones that we need to keep into mind, what are the key output that will be required, what are the inputs to the next task, if we want to generate, you need to generate, that all has to be keep in mind. So process frames one of the most important fact. Okay, it is the one which will keep all these levels together, and the process has to be laid down in such a way that it covers all the activities, actions, and the tasks in order to require to carry out the software development. Okay, so having said this, now we come to the methods. When method you're talking about, then we have already talked about process. So the how to go ahead with this particular process will be talked by the method. What are the technical way, right, through which we're going to implement this particular soft in this software itself. Okay, now here when you're talking about the collection, when you're talking about a task, this method will be talking about how we're going to achieve this particular task itself. Let us say something that task like communications, and when you are developing a particular software, right, how the team members will be going to communicate among yourself themselves, how they will going to communicate with the client, what how they will understand the requirement, how they will going to analyze the requirement, and then once they analyze the requirement, how that will be translated into a particular design model, how the program will be constructed, how the code will be written, how we're going to have the testing patterns, how will you create a testing plan, and what are the key support that we require to do. So all these particular tasks we are is how will you going to do this? It will be talking about the method part itself. Okay, and lastly is the tools, right? The tools that we're going to use it, something like it can be an automated tool in which will be help us in order to support the software development, or the tool may be integrated, right? Like when one tool can be used by other tool itself. One of the very famous example of a tool is the Microsoft Publisher, which can be used as a web designing tool itself. Later we'll come to know during project management also a lot of tools are used in order to manage that particular software itself. So, for example, I am the project manager, and I have a team of people. I have distributed certain tasks. Okay, so how are you going to manage it? So, I'll be using certain tools to understand what are progress of that particular software itself by each of these team member itself. So, tool plays a vital role when we are talking about development of the software itself. So having said this, let us understand when you talk about layered software, our technology itself. So the foundation, we are talking about the process. Okay, the key output that we are talking about is nothing but the quality of the particular software. When you talk about the quality, we are talking about the usability. We are talking about the correctness of the software. Yes, whatever we are building, actually it will be viable, it will be usable to the client, to the user itself or not. Then when we are talking about the process, we have to understand the method, how will you going to implement a particular process itself. So certain like understanding the communication between the team members, understanding the requirement, how the requirement will translate it into the design to the coding, testing, what are the testing plans that we need to do. All these things will be carried under the methodology. And lastly, you will be going to use certain tools. It can be some kind of automated tools, or it may be some kind of integrated tool. One of the example I talked about is a Microsoft Publisher. Another, I gave an example like a project manager. He has to manage that particular software because a team of people will be working. What kind of task has been assigned to the to each of this team member what is the deadline of it, what is the progress of this. It can be easily be handled by this particular tool itself. Okay, I hope you have understood the concept of softwaring in terms of lad technology.